Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Women, Real Wisdom, sage advice from wonderful women just like you, redefining the meaning of midlife. And today my guest is Tracy Southwick. And Tracy has been a friend for a long time, but she's also one of the most interesting women that I know in the field of wellness, because Tracy has kind of developed not only her own system of being a holistic health advocate, but she is extremely well educated. This is a woman who started out in life not even thinking that this is where she was going to end up. So this is a fascinating story to me. So welcome, Tracy. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Sandy.
Yay! Well, right now you have a wonderful clinic in Houston, Texas, but you live in London.
Yes,
So this is
a
like,
little complicated.
okay, yeah, but you're making it happen. That's the point, is you're making it
Yes.
happen. Did you always want to start out to be a healthcare practitioner?
Oh, well, to be honest, it never even crossed my mind. I started out going to school in aerospace engineering because I wanted to be an astronaut.
Oh my gosh.
A little different field than where I am
Yeah,
now. But
slightly.
slightly, yes. But it didn't work out, and I'm so grateful that it didn't. And it led me down a path that I never thought I would be on. And it's such a gratifying place to be, such a great area to be working in, and just gives me so much. I have so much passion around what I do. So I'm so grateful. I don't think I would have done that had I followed my original plan.
Well, that's the short version. So how did you get from wanting to walk on the moon to to where you are right now as a person who's discovering all these inner landscapes and how we keep our wellness as we age? So tell me how that shift occurred.
Well, the shift actually happened because I became very ill myself, which is what happens to a lot of people who end up in the holistic health field. Because I was finally, after months of trying to figure out what was going on, I finally found an internist who discovered that I had Epstein-Barr virus and chronic fatigue syndrome, and told me that I would be in bed or in and out of bed for probably the rest of my life. This was 20 plus years ago. I was very young, newly married to a man who had two children from a previous marriage. So I was taking care of those kids. They lived with us, and I couldn't get out of bed. I was so ill. Um, and it was devastating because I thought, I was told I could never lead a normal life. I would never work. I'd never be able to hold down a job. Essentially, the outlook was pretty grim.
How old were you
So
then? How old were you then? How old were you?
I was in my early 20s.
Early 20s. Okay.
Early 20s. And so I was actually recommended to go to a health food store, and I thought, what do I have to lose? All that Western medicine at that point could offer me, because they don't deal with chronic illness very well, very good at emergency, but not very good at chronic, was Prozac. And I didn't want to go that route. I wasn't depressed, although I was starting to get depressed because of the prognosis, but I went to this health food store and said, "Help me!" And they put me on some herbs, and they said, "You need to change your diet." I was actually living on Diet Dr. Pepper and pasta, and all the cakes, the wonderful cakes that all these sweet people were bringing me because I was ill.
Oh,
It was so kind, and of course it was the easy thing to do, and I changed what I was doing, and within 2 weeks I was out of bed. It was just unbelievable to me.
just by changing your
So
diet.
just by changing my diet, and I was taking a few herbs and supplements as well, but not a whole lot. As you can imagine, I just became so excited. I wanted to learn anything and everything I could about natural health, and I started going to every seminar I could find. I was traveling all over when I could, devouring books, and this was before the internet was
Right.
like it is today. So you had to search out the information.
Yeah.
And I was so excited. And within, I would say, a year, I opened a health food store out in Fredericksburg, Texas.
Which is near
And
Austin for anybody who doesn't know
it's,
Texas. It's
it
near
is,
Austin.
it's out in the hill country. It's been wonderful ever since then.
Well, I think you told me a story about you looked so young when you opened this store that people would come in and ask your mother.
Oh yes, oh yes. I mean, it was embarrassing, and the funny thing was that my mother actually did work for me one day a week, and she had to say, "No, my daughter is the one that owns the store." But I ended up starting a radio show, and I think people very quickly began to trust me And that's how I grew it. But it was, I mean, it was that building up that trust and kind of, yeah, it was an uphill climb, but it wasn't that difficult because people were so open and everybody just wants to be healthy. And if you're open and you're willing to look for what the root causes of your health imbalance are, then you can make some changes.
That's really good. So the root cause, how does that play in now to the big picture of what you do? Is the root cause something you look for in the beginning of talking to a new client?
Well, it's extremely important, and the big philosophy behind my clinic that I have now in Houston is that your body has an innate ability to heal itself. We were all created with this innate ability to heal itself, and there are two things that can be causing that not to take place. And one of those is toxicity, and the other one is malnutrition. So malnutrition can simply be you're deficient in vitamin D, or you're dehydrated, or it doesn't mean you're eating every meal fast food. It just could mean you're missing key nutrients that your body needs. So we look for those underlying causes. We call them stressors, what's stressing the body out and keeping it from doing its job. And we address those, and it's amazing what the body can do.
For someone who really doesn't know much about holistic healthcare, how would you, and it's gotten a bad rap in our country, how would you explain to them the benefit if they've tried looking for all the answers in regular healthcare? And this happens to a lot of us. We look for answers and we don't want to take another pill. We don't want to have some surgery we may not have to have. What is the benefit of looking into holistic healthcare, especially with a clinic like yours?
Well, you're doing two things. One is you're understanding that the body works together. Everything in the body is connected, that mind-body connection that everyone's talking about. So we're working with that aspect. And the other one is understanding how the body works versus, you've got an issue and you may not make the connection between the fact that your knees hurt or your lower back hurts and you have an underlying kidney weakness. So those are things that if you went sometimes to a GP, they wouldn't look at the body holistically. They wouldn't say, oh yes, this issue can be causing this symptom over here, because everything is so intertwined in our bodies. We don't have these isolated systems. The body is a system. It works together, and it is meant to heal. It is built to heal. We cut ourselves, we heal. If we didn't have that innate ability, we wouldn't live very long, to be honest.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So how would someone evaluate? We might get a recommendation for a regular medical doctor or get a reference. How would someone evaluate holistic practitioners? We don't want to go to somebody who could just tell us anything because, they could, well, if you have a pain, it's your liver. Oh, how do I know that? How do we evaluate?
Right. You know what? That's a very, very good point. And somebody who's experienced that's going to be a big part of it, because there are a lot of people out there who call themselves holistic practitioners, and they can be a little, they can be the ones that actually give holistic health a bad rap. So look for someone who's educated, look for someone who's doing science-based
that's good.
work. So we try to base what we do in science. I give a lot of talks, and all of the evidence, all of the points that we talk about go back to studies that have proven things like the mind-body connection, like the fact that if you're dehydrated, it causes cognitive decline. Certain things like that. And somebody whose mind is set that way and realizes the benefit of science, while also being open to anecdotal evidence, because there are things that haven't been studied yet, and there's not a lot of funding for holistic studies.
Yeah.
But so there's that balance of being open, but also being, realistic and understanding how the body works.
So it comes down to learning to be your own best advocate and do your own research, which falls into the category of taking personal responsibility, which some of us, if we've lived a life of having someone in our lives who helped us not do that, maybe we were married and we didn't have to think for ourselves, and that's a broad statement. I don't mean it exactly like that, but sometimes when we have a net in our lives and we reach midlife and maybe that net isn't there anymore, It's a very daunting thing to have to start looking for help and trusting your own decision. Do you get people, clients,
Absolutely.
especially female clients, that come in and they're having trouble with this transition into midlife, and how do you deal with it?
I would say probably the majority of the people that come in are in that boat. And of course, there are typical things that we see with women, midlife women, fatigue being one of them. That is a huge issue. It's that they've been burning the candle at both ends for so long, have not been taking care of themselves. They've been taking care of everyone else. And they come in and they're just completely depleted. And they say, well, the doctor says that all my blood work is fine, my thyroid's fine, everything's fine, but why am I so tired? Why, and that's very, very common. Or why do I feel so irritable all the time, or why do I feel so anxious all the time? And there's so many things that you can look at, and understanding the way the body works, that you can help somebody build themselves back up emotionally, mentally, and physically. And that's what we really work with. We have a behavior division that works with helping people cope with emotional, mental stress, and they have amazing tools. We do great things with that side of it, but then we also work with the nutritional side and helping people understand what they put into their bodies, be it natural or be it a chemical based thing, is going to have an effect, a positive or maybe a detrimental effect, and starting to understand that we need to feed our bodies with things that build our bodies up emotionally and physically, versus the depleting
Where do
thought
you
pattern.
well, and so you have a behavioral division, you have a nutritional side. Does the behavioral division, do you even talk about the whole principle that your thinking creates your reality? Do you get into that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thoughts become things. So the more you tell yourself I'm unhealthy, the more you think I'm unhealthy, I can never be strong, I'm always so tired, those kinds of thoughts. The more your body, it's called neuroplasticity. So you're changing your brain to actually follow suit with whatever you tell your brain. So it doesn't mean saying I'm a millionaire is going to make you a millionaire. But if you say things about yourself physically and emotionally, your body actually rewires, the brain rewires itself to follow those thought patterns.
That's really good. And as we age, there's a tendency to go, I'm getting old. I just said that this morning. I'm too old for that. And I stopped myself and I thought, no, actually, I'm just too lazy to do that anymore. There's a difference between, and when we look at ourselves as old, I think in a way that plays into how we age.
Well, it does. And another thing that we talk to people about is understanding and rewire or changing our definition about aging. Because when we talk about aging, we think of that as being negative. But aging is beautiful and it's wonderful, and women achieve so much wisdom and grace as we age. So let's look at the positive and focus on that, and saying, I'm aging gracefully and beautifully, and I feel strong and fit. And you're a perfect example of that, Sandy. Just how well, you're such an inspiration to me, because you take such good care of yourself, and that self-care is so important. And women just, they may do it. I should include myself in that, may do it for exterior reasons, but understanding the benefit that it gives us emotionally, and also for our health deep down inside, our entire bodies, everything is dependent upon how we take care of ourselves. No one else is going to do it for us.
No.
We have to do it for ourselves.
And then
make it a priority.
And make it a priority. And then it comes back to, if you haven't been in the habit of it, you have to learn the habit of putting yourself first.
And that's why another reason it's so important to have a support group. And it may not be your spouse. It may not be your kids. In fact, I have friends whose kids are very, very resistant, because all their lives they've been taken care of. They have a habit of depending on their mother. So it's breaking your own habits and also breaking their habits that can be very challenging.
That's so good. I'm glad you said the support group, because that's come up in several of these interviews, that as we age, there's a tendency to feel more isolated, and it's really true. That finding people that you can connect with that help you age positively. It's not just anybody you can talk to. I mean, you start to get more discerning about who's in your life and who gets into your head.
Well, that is so true. And it's so important to surround yourself. And that's what I've done at my clinic. I have the most amazing group of women
Oh,
that are all middle-aged who
yeah.
they've all recreated themselves. So they've all gotten to a point where typically their children have gotten into high school or college and they said, what do I want to do with my life? And they've gone back to school, are completely passionate about helping people. Very amazing, amazing. And they were all clients when they first came to me. So they all had their health issues as well. So it's really wonderful to work in a group of women. That everyone who works for me is a woman, and these women are the most supportive, loving, open, kind, passionate. I can go on and on about the women that work at my clinic. It's like going to work with all your best friends. I wish you were there.
I wish I was there too. And I love going there just for that reason.
Oh,
It's like, I just want to live here. Can I live here?
yeah,
It's a lovely place. So you've created an atmosphere that's very welcoming. It's very healing. So thank you for bringing that up, because at midlife, when we're faced with a big change, what if it's a total career change and we don't know what we want to go into? I mean, what advice would you give someone who's facing a complete change in, maybe their children are grown, maybe their marriage, or maybe it doesn't exist anymore, or maybe they never were married, or maybe their marriage exists but it's not the same.
right.
Things are changing. It's change, change, change. So
Uh,
what's the bottom line about the first thing to help yourself through that?
Well, you have to have passion, so you can't do it. It won't work if you're not passionate about it. So go from the heart. I mean, obviously you have to think things through, but you need to do it from the heart, because why waste any more time doing
Very true.
something that you have to do versus something that you're passionate about, and that will keep you focused and it will give you the strength that you need to get through it. And know that other people have done it. You're not the only one. So many people have done this. It doesn't seem like it, maybe, in the crowd that you run around in. But if you look, you're going to find people that have the same passion, same desire. Connect with them, surround yourself with positive, passionate people.
So again, coming back to support, but
Yes, it's so
very
important.
discerning support. Not just, I mean, you may have had somebody in your life for years that is kind of a complainer, and there's a point where that drains your energy. And
Absolutely.
looking at how you
Absolutely.
complain, I mean, that's a big deal too. Where do
Yep.
we lose our energy? And what did you say? Something a little. I want to back up to something that you said early on about how we look, and it's been my theory that women have this gift of, our beauty is actually almost like a currency for us. And I don't mean that like we use it. I mean that we need to be able to access it if we want to use it in our favor. So, what is your theory about where true beauty comes from?
Obviously, I think that it's holistic. So you can't be just beautiful on the outside and not beautiful on the inside. I think when you're in a place where you're physically healthy, we call it vibrant health.
Yes, I like that.
Yes. But when you're physically healthy on the inside and you're mentally healthy, you're in a good place, you're taking care of yourself, you're surrounded, and you can't always be 100% surrounded by love, but you're focused on that and you're focused on sharing that with other people. I think people just glow that are like that. You know immediately when you're around that kind of person. You just want to be in their energy. You want to bask in their beauty. And it may not be what the traditional sense of beauty is, somebody you would see in Vogue magazine. It would be the kind of beauty that actually changes you. It actually adds to who you are versus it takes away. We all complain about certain things, but the type of person that you're talking about is always negative. And those kinds of people, actually, if you allow them, deplete you, versus true beauty is somebody who brings you to a better place, a higher vibration, or a higher sense of well-being.
I agree with that. I use the word radiance, vibrance, radiance.
Yes,
It's
perfect.
all right in there.
Perfect.
And back to what you were saying, you can't always be around love. And when you said that, that's true. You can't always be around it. For me, one of the big things I've learned is that I have to be my own generator. I have to be my self generator. So
Yes. Well
That's
said.
that's not an easy thing to learn. What do you know about that?
Well, this is something that and I touched on this before too, that we try to instill in the people that come to us. It's your responsibility. You have to take, the horse by the reins. Nobody is going to generate that love for you. You can't even accept it if you're not able to generate it yourself. In this world, it's a give and take. It's not, you can't just take, and you can't just give without being depleted. So finding that place, where you can, every person you pass by, you can say, I wish you love, I wish you joy. That comes back to you. They feel that you truly want them to be happy, to be in a good place.
And there's no agenda behind it. There's a point where this whole thing of I will do this to get that.
Right.
To me, I've learned that for me that is a very limiting belief, and that's a tough one to break.
It is, and it's actually disappointing. You'll always be disappointed if you go about it, and it's hard. It's so hard. Sometimes I think I've gotten to a good place, and then I go, oh, I can't believe I just had that thought. And then you've got, we say at my clinic, we say cancel clear. Anytime you say something that's negative, like I'm getting too old, cancel clear. No, stop, or how, whatever works for you.
It's almost like you take back the words so that you can rethink the thought.
Yes, you have to stop it.
Does that empower me? Does this thought actually empower me?
Empower. So, and it's a habit to get into for you to start recognizing what those thought patterns are. It really is changing a habit, because the habit that we typically have is you just let your mind go and go and go, and it spirals into unhealthy places. So to be diligent in recognizing what you're thinking and if it's empowering or if it's depleting.
I think it's the hardest work I've ever done, is to police my mind and to catch the habitual thinking and then to shift it. So what do I want to think? This is what I've been thinking. What do I actually want to think? Because in the moment, that that comes up is what you've been thinking. So what I've learned is to feel it in my body. That doesn't feel good to think that. And I've also learned that the message that doesn't feel good is not my heart talking. It's not my higher self talking. It's all mental.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to say it.
So what would you do with someone who comes in where you can see that mostly they've got really negative self-talk coming on? Would you start physically or would you start mentally? Where would you start?
No, absolutely mentally. We would start mentally, because they're never going to get well physically. It all starts here. So if you don't believe you can get well, you're wasting your money and your time seeing somebody. And that's not what we want. We want somebody to become healthy and go out on their own. It's not our desire to keep people coming back to us, because that's the Western model. Create a situation where you have to come back. No, we want people to learn and understand. I'm not saying you don't go back to a doctor for checkups. That's not what I mean. But we don't want people to become dependent upon us. We want people to want to go out and be healthy and enjoy their lives and be empowered and know what to do. So we do a lot of educational work.
I love that. If you don't believe you can get well, you're wasting your time and your money.
That's true.
That's really good. So it does start here. And frankly, I think that's where the vibrancy and radiance comes from. When you see someone that you have a hard time telling what age they are, and they're older than you, but you really can't tell how old they are. That to me is the mark of someone who's really done the work. And it is work.
It's work. It's hard. It's painful.
But it's the hardest,
in a good way. It's liberating.
And it's the best hard work I've ever done, because the payoff is I get to own how I feel, which means even in tough situations, I can shift it. Learning that's a big deal.
It's true. And some of these thought patterns, I'm certainly have a lot more work to do. All of a sudden I'll come up with a thought pattern or belief system that I've had since I was 5. And I never even realized I was thinking that way, but it's there and I have to work to shift that.
It's not about, for me, I figured out, it's not about discerning where the belief came from. While I got it when I was 5, and I used to think that. I used to think I had to uncover it, how old I was, where it came from, who said what.
Right.
But now what I realize is, if it feels bad in my skin, if I don't feel good thinking that thought, it's no longer serving me, period.
Right. It doesn't matter who did it. Nobody, and somebody who may have given you that belief probably never in a million years thought it was a bad thing. They were just passing along. I'm sure they don't even remember it. They were just passing along what they learned. So to be focused on, that's a very blame oriented too mindset. Let's put the blame here so I don't have to take responsibility for the fact that I chose this belief system or this thought pattern.
And
So,
that is the way of the world. So we come
yes.
into this world that's all full of blame and judgment, and we have to figure out by midlife whether it feels good anymore. This is why
Yes.
this area fascinates me. When we shift from how we've always lived into who we're going to be, it's right at that midlife point. At least it was for me and the women that I know. It seems to be right in there. So what fascinates you most about this midlife place that you've just crossed into? You're just moving into that. What fascinates you most?
It's the shift from where I was, and part of it was the blame, in my 30s, being in that state of trying to figure out why I'm this way, to taking the responsibility for myself, realizing nobody's going to do it for me, and not caring what anyone else thinks. Just, I'm going to do what I want and what I really feel is right. And I don't mean do what I want in terms of anything that would be harmful to someone. I just mean make choices in my life that are empowering to me versus being concerned with what my mom's going to think or my friend's going to think. Being able to get past, and it's not always an easy thing to do, but changing that focus to nobody else is going to take care of me. I've got to change myself in order to be who I want to be.
And I think it's back to root cause. It is a root cause of misery to be so concerned about what's outside of us. And it's normal because everybody does it, right? I mean, we live in a world that's what everybody does. Well, not everybody.
Sure.
And those who don't do it didn't start out that way. They've learned the other and they've retrained themselves. So This is fascinating, and I know that we have listeners who would really like to know more about you and about Heights of Health, which is the name of the clinic. So how could they get in touch with you or find the clinic, or how would they go about that?
Well, the best way is probably just to look at our website. It's heightsofhealth.com. HEIGHTS. So the Heights, if you're not from Houston, is a neighborhood in Houston, and that's where the clinic is. So hence the name.
Fantastic. Tracy, I thank you so much. One last thing. I read this the other day. Is this true? The slower we move, the faster we die.
Ah, that's very good.
Isn't that interesting?
That is so true in so many ways, and from a physical standpoint, so many studies have come out about the importance of movement, and you can work out and go to the gym and have an hour workout. And if you sit at your desk all day, that workout's completely negated. And then from the emotional standpoint, if you're not moving and changing and reworking your brain, it's getting neuroplasticity is what it's called. It's the malleability of the brain. If you're slowing down and you're not making changes, those changes are being made for you, and you're not going to be in a good place later on in life because you've already hardwired your brain.
That's really good. We just have underestimated the power of movement. I heard a friend of mine say movement is medicine, and it feels true to me. Yeah.
It's true. It's so true. Your body is made to move. So.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much for being with us today. This is just a joy to have you here.
It's always wonderful to talk with you.
It is always wonderful to talk with you. We forgot to mention one quick thing about your kids program. What's the name of the kids program again?
Present Time Kids is what it's called.
That's
yes, in our behavior division. So we work with children to help. It's a mindfulness program that we have implemented in an elementary school, and it's been very successful. And we work with parents to help their children become more mindful. They can be, children that are ASD on the spectrum, but also children that have ADHD, or children whose parents just want them to learn mindfulness practices at a young age, because if you learn it at a young age, it's going to help you so much deal with stress later on in life. It can be amazing.
Fantastic. I'd see that as preventative medicine.
It is, absolutely. You teach these tools to children young, they're going to be able to use them for a lifetime. And they'll be better off than we are.
Well, we're getting better, slowly but surely.
Yes.
We're figuring it out on the tail end. It's better than not figuring it out at all.
I know, that's true. That's true.
So thank you so much, Tracy. And for
Thank you,
everyone
Sandy.
listening, it's been a joy being with you. And I'm Sandy Rose Miller for Real Women, Real Wisdom. See you next time.